Alright, hello everyone, my name is Alice, and today we're going to be focusing on Lab 14.4.2.7, which is writing basic scripts in Windows and Linux. The first thing you want to do to get started is to log into your NetLab account. You can do that by clicking on this link and entering in your login information. What you should do now is you should create a new lab reservation. By doing so, you will be able to complete the lab. First, click on New Lab Reservation, and then Schedule Lab for myself. Select the class which you wish to do it for, and then go to Cisco IT Essentials V8. You'll need to scroll down all the way, and if it's like mine, where it truncates the entries, you will just have to click on number 2 and continue going down until you see 14.4.2.7, which is writing basic scripts in Windows and Linux. Click on that, and now you see the scheduler. I am going to schedule this for right now, but you can also schedule it for later if you wish to complete the lab at home. In this case, I'm going to go right up to here and click there. So, there we go. And I'm going to give myself a bit more time, an hour and 12 minutes, just because I'm going to be explaining things. There we go. Our reservation is now scheduled, so hit OK and wait for it to go back. If you've done what I did, you should be able to enter the lab right away by hitting Enter Lab. If you haven't, just wait until the allotted starting time, and then you should see this. So we are now in our lab environment. So the first thing we're going to want to do, as this says, is we are going to want to enter into the Windows 10 machine, which is Win10-OS. Click on it. It should give you this login screen. You can click or hit the spacebar in order to get it to the login screen. Then type in ndg, ND and G should be capital, lab pass, lowercase and all one word, 1, 2, 3, and exclamation mark. Then hit enter. So, what is the first thing we should do? Well, we need to open Notepad. So, there are two ways of doing that. Number one, you can just click here and then click Notepad, but if that is not there, then you can find it easily just by typing Notepad. Now that we've done this, we need to enter in what we see here. Now, I'll warn you that typically you can't just hit copy, click in here, and then paste, because this is treating the copy-paste dialog as if it is within the Windows 10 machine, not as if you are copying something from this browser window. So it will see nothing to paste. So you have to enter it in manually. Okay, and you should be good here. Now, as of note, these 3 remarks will provide additional information about some of the commands in here, which you are completely free to try and explore by opening up a command prompt window. As it says here, do not type these remarks into the script. If you already have, that is fine. It will not be run either way, because rem means remark, which you can think of as analogous to a comment in a programming language. It simply will not execute it and will just skip to the next line. So now we must save it, and we must save it not as a text file, but as a batch file. So to do that, we must click File, Save As. In this case, I'm going to say desktop, and I'm going to name it, as it says, info.bat. As I said before, BAT is batch, which is why it is written in batch programming language. Then select all files. If you leave it as text document, it's just going to save it as a text document, even though you put BAT as the file extension. So you must make sure that it is saved as all files. Then simply click Save. And you'll see it should show up here, and it should have this icon with the gears. You can now close this, open this, and type in CMD. That is short for Command Prompt. Hit Enter. Now, in some cases, you are going to have to run Command Prompt as an administrator in order to execute certain things. In this case, however, you will not, so leave it alone. We want to navigate to our desktop directory, so in this case, we simply type cd, which means change directory, and then desktop. And here we are. Now, in order to execute this, well, actually, first of all, we need to make sure that it's seeing it. Even though we can visually verify, we must make sure that the command prompt can see it. So we simply need to select dir. And this tells us that in here, we have 2 files and also 2 directories. So inside the directory of desktop, we have the 2 files. One is toolbox.lnk. LNK means it is a link file. So if you click on it, it will execute a program that is located somewhere else. And then we have info.bat, which is our batch file. In order to execute it, you can simply type info.bat and then hit enter. If you named it something else, then you would simply want to write rename info.bat to, or in this case, let's say it's called info.bat.txt. In this case, this would be what would happen if you typed the name as info.bat but did not select all files in the Save As menu, and then you would just name it info.bat. This would change the file type from a text file to a batch file. But since we don't have to do this, we can scroll down. At the prompt, we can just enter info.bat and hit enter. And as we see here, this is the output we get. And if we compare it to our notepad file, which in this case, I can just open. Ah, right, I forgot it wasn't saved. Never mind. But if you were to open the notepad file, then you could simply compare each line to what is put here. Take a few moments to enter in your answers to these questions, and then we will move on. All right, now we're going to move on to creating a PowerShell script. So, in order to do that, we'll scroll down here. So we can click the Start menu, that's this, or this, and we just type PowerShell. Now you could just select PowerShell ISE here from this list, or you can continue on, type ISE, and there it is. Now you'll want to right-click this and select Run as Administrator. This will bring up the user account control, where you will select Yes. In this case, we can close this because we're not going to be using it. So right now we're in the System32 folder. What we want to do is we want to get to the root system, which in this case would just be C:. So to do that, we simply go here and type cd \, and that will get us to our root directory. Then we type cd users \, and you'll also see that this has autocomplete. So you can either type sysadmin or just click here and hit enter. However, it seems to have added an erroneous period, which we can remove. Then we hit enter. Now we are in the directory sysadmin. In order to be able to run whatever script we write, we need to change what PowerShell allows to be executed. In this case, we want to type set-execution policy. You can hit tab here to complete that, then space and remote signed. Now hit enter, and then select yes. What this will allow it to do is it will allow it to run PowerShell scripts that are not signed by Microsoft. You'll see nothing happens, but in reality, you've changed the execution policy, it just hasn't printed anything to the console. Now what we need to do is we need to actually create the file, and you can't do it here. In order to do it, go to File, and select New. This opens up an editing environment. I believe that's what ISE stands for, Integrated Scripting Environment. Now, we must copy the text from here to here by writing it in. And as you can see here, you can essentially use the autocomplete to finish what you are writing. Although sometimes it's faster and easier to just, write it yourself. If we go to the add-ons and we go to commands, this is what I was referring to earlier, which if you want to learn more about it, this can actually be useful here. So in this case, we can go to write output, and you can click on that and you can learn more information about the command. Now, in this case, now that we've done all this, we want to save it. And you see that it is already given the file extension .ps1. So all we need to do is just hit save. In this case, I'm just going to go to the desktop. We'll save it as info.ps1. We can also say psm1, psd. In this case, we just want ps1. All right. Now, in this case, let's navigate to the desktop. Here we are. And in order to run it, we just type /info.ps1, and we can use autocomplete here once again. And now it will run. And let's see if I can resize this here. There we go. Now we can better see the output. You should see a similar output on your own screens. Make sure to compare our two scripts. I will let you figure that out on your own. All right, now we're going to create a bash script. So what exactly is bash? So bash is technically an acronym, which means Born Again Shell. Now, this is because there are technically different shells that you can use on a Linux system. A shell is typically a way that you can interact with this Linux system itself through the command line. And there are different shells that you can use, and they're called different things. This one is called Born Again Shell, and it's one of the more common shells that you can use. So, first, we must open up our server manager. So in this case, it should be Hyper-V Manager. Simply hit enter to launch it. Now, what we're going to do is we are going to double-click on what's listed here, Ubuntu Server OS, just like this, and it will list that it is turned off. We just want to select Start. Now we must wait for it to start up. Free to move it around a bit. There we go. So in this case, it wants you to enter in both the username and the password. So just type in sysadmin, and then for password, ndg lab pass 123 exclamation point. If you don't see it being typed out, that is normal. That's a security service. And there we go. So now we want to type vim. Vim is an integrated text editor on a lot of Linux systems. info.sh. That is essentially creating the file that we're going to be working in. And then we will hit enter. And here we are. The first thing we want to do is type I to insert text. Once we do that, we should now, as you can see, be able to type. Now we must type in hashtag exclamation point /bin/bash. This is telling us that it wants to use the bash shell. Okay, so this confirms that it was written correctly. And to double confirm, we just hit dir, and that lists info.sh. So now we need to make the script executable. So in order to do that, we type chmod. Chmod, as it's also known, essentially allows you to change a file's permissions. Some of the common permissions are read, write, and execute, which will allow you to read a file, write to a file, and execute a file. In this case, we want it to be executable, so we type chmod 755 and then info.sh, sh for shell script. I hit enter, and now we should be able to simply type /info.sh and hit enter. And there we go. So now we have listed all of the information about the computer. So you can write the output and put your answers here. We can now shut down our virtual machine . There we go. And our lab is now complete. When you are finished with everything, simply hit reservation and end reservation now.